you're being invited into a deeper experience of who you are. There's a pandemic of not enoughness that's all over the world. You can get to a point where you can start to just recognize, my God, like I just really haven't loved myself. I really haven't embraced who I am. And at first that's going to be sad. But then after a while you realize, whoa, okay, well, this is my opportunity. Our role in all of this is to cultivate an intimacy with who we are. And to accept these parts of ourselves and to recognize that we deserve our love. There's love in us. It's in all of us. When we start to reclaim that part of ourselves, which is the truth of ourselves, well, then we can reclaim everything else, the wisdom, the love, the light, the abundance, everything else, you see. And if you're that person who's listening to this and thinking, as uncomfortable as this conversation is right now, he's speaking to me, then now it's time to start paying attention.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Thick Thighs Save Lives podcast. We have an amazing guest for you today. Panache Desai is an internationally acclaimed mentor, speaker, and best-selling author dedicated to unlocking human potential and fostering personal empowerment. Okay, everybody just said, like, hold the phone, stop everything, turn up the volume, because if that isn't what we're all seeking, I don't know what. You've got 3 decades of experience as a transformational thought leader, and you inspire individuals worldwide to achieve greater connection, authenticity, and peace. If that isn't everything. Thank you so much for being on with us today.
Thanks for having me. It's a joy to be here.
Such a joy to have you. So the name of your book is You Are Enough. And I do have to tell you that we have a primarily type A women, fitness, health motivated audience. And those 3 words are both very powerful and very elusive. So I want to start with asking you, why call the book You Are Enough? Who were you speaking to when you named the book that and wrote the beautiful words that are inside?
I think that there's a pandemic of not enoughness that's all over the world. And this is why we're experiencing suicide, depression, anxiety at record levels, because people are just constantly invalidating themselves for being the human beings that they are. And I'm sure that most of your audience can relate. Played by the rules, done everything you're supposed to do, checked off all the boxes, filled off all the metrics, turned yourself inside out to meet everyone else's wants and needs, and yet you're left feeling alone. And the love that you've been promised, or the acknowledgement that you've been promised, just is ever elusive, and it evades you. And so in looking at where we are now as a planet of people, we're experiencing a pandemic proportion size of not enoughness. And this is why we're just getting lost further and further into external modes or mediums to try and remedy things. So, for example, most of your listeners are super healthy, super driven to be healthy, but what's driving them? Is what's driving them an authentic love for themselves, or is what's driving them this constant, incessant pressure that's placed upon them by society, by their peers and colleagues to adhere to a certain standard? And I can tell you that the majority of people who go on to excel in anything, for the most part, are driven by pain. They're not driven by peace or acceptance. It's this pain of not enough that's fueling them. The most recent manifestation of this is Blake Mikowski. So this Blake Mikowski founded Tom's. Subsequently, it turns out that all of his dreams came true, and then he was suicidal and depressed and had to contend with not being enough, right? And so we're seeing that at the entrepreneurial level, at your level, at the life and living level, at the gym community level, at the spiritual level, at the most basic fundamental level. No matter who you are and what you are, we have to address this.
That is so extremely powerful and simultaneously so extremely tragic, because at the base of everyone's being, do you feel that most people are under the impression that they are not, in fact, enough?
Totally. And it's this collective kind of brainwashing, hypnosis, and bamboozling that goes on. And it's the algorithm. And it's every other mainstream form of medium that we connect with. Why? Because all of that keeps you in this imperfection economy. It keeps you in this illusion of not enough. Why? So then you stay on this hamster wheel of production and consumption, thinking that, all right, well, maybe it's the next visit to the gym, and then I'll finally start to be approved of and accepted, or maybe then my reels will start to trend, or maybe then my shorts will, start to gain traction or start to gain some relevance, in my genre or field. And, it's all an illusion. It's all a lie. And no, and everyone knows that they're lying and they're suffering, but nobody wants to be honest about the fact that they are.
Also, if you're enough, then you might not need to spend 29 4 easy payments of 29.99 for all of the things that would finally make you enough. You spoke a little bit about the CEO of Tom's, and I know that this is not a unique scenario, but on a more personal level of, less wildly famous CEOs, do you often feel that the goals people set for themselves in thinking that in that goal lies the the feeling finally that they can rest and be at peace with themselves? Do you often see that backfire?
Every single time. Because every time you make it about something outside of you, it's totally unobtainable, right? And you know that, right? It's the next relationship. It's the next, 10x in income. It's the next whatever, right? It's whatever we latch onto. And, I think we just need to, as a planet full of people, realize that being a human being is really like actually pretty cool. And that it's okay to be the way that we are and that we've come here to be individuals. And that really the antidote to all of this is to just be unique, to be you. Fine. Like if you have a love or a passion for going to the gym, what is that for you in your heart of hearts authentically? Why are you doing it? Are you doing it because you love yourself and you're doing it for your longevity, or are you doing it because you want to look good on Instagram? Like, what is it? And that's where you have to get clear. And see, the problem is that now everything's become a career. It's not a calling anymore. For so many people, there was an authentic passion for fitness, an authentic passion for spiritual development, an authentic passion to know who we are, to know the love that we are. Now it's become a career. So everyone's doing it for the purely superficial reason of the self-image. And no one's really doing it for any sense of authentic connection to who they are and why they're here. And that's where I think that interactions like this make a huge difference. Because when you really begin to pivot from this foundation of, well, wait a minute, no, I'm just a human being. I don't need to be fixed. I don't need to be healed. I don't need to be changed. I don't need to be improved. I don't have to waste my time understanding myself. I can actually just make peace with myself the way that I am and recognize that being human means being all of it. It means having the emotions, having the feelings, having the thoughts, having the beliefs, having the body that you have, living the life that you have. It's the totality of all of it. And what's wrong with that? Nothing. You're you. In the absence of those things, you wouldn't be the way you are. And then we wouldn't have a unique expression of love in this world. And so after a while, we've just got to get used to recognizing that all of this stuff that we're trying to live up to, the goals, the outcomes, the metrics, all of those things were founded by people in pain and based under the false thesis that you can success your way out of your suffering.
Is it in our nature as human beings and problem solvers to see ourselves as a problem that needs to be solved? Are we fighting our own nature in just this idea of radical self-acceptance?
I don't think it's in our nature to override our own self-sovereignty and our own self-acceptance, self-love. I think we're taught and we're trained to be that way. And I think it's the interactions that we have in our formative years and then beyond with our siblings and peers and colleagues and whoever we interface with in the world. Those interpretations then become our own internalized interpretations of ourselves. And so now all of a sudden, we're asking people who don't love themselves to love us. And no matter how hard we try, and no matter what we do, it's never enough, and we never get the love that we want. So then we fall into this illusion of there's something wrong with me. I'm broken. Like no matter how I say it, how I do it, it's not working. And the love that I know is possible isn't showing up, right? Or the fulfillment that I know is possible isn't arriving. And see, what we have to realize is that it's not outside of us. I think a lot of us have been old enough now, we've gone through enough relationship dynamics, enough career dynamics, financial dynamics, life and living real world circumstances to realize that even if you attain that goal, whatever the goal is that you're supposed to attain, it's not going to bring you the fulfillment or the peace that you know is available to you. So we have to start from that love, start from that acceptance, start from that peace, and move forward from there. Because if you don't start from where you want to finish, you'll never end up there.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Can, can I ask you a personal question? Have you ever, have you always felt like enough? Where did this come in as a personal calling and a journey for you to really wrangle this message and then put it in writing?
I think that we all come into this world knowing who we are, having a sense of connection to who we are. For me, that happened in a spiritual context. So there's all kinds of spiritual verbiage I could use, but just to save time, we'll just call it love. Like we all know that the essence of who we are is love, right? That where there's light, there's presence, right? And no matter what path you're born into, what tradition, it doesn't matter. They've all said the same thing essentially, like you're all love. And after a while, see what happens is you make yourself wrong or weird for being that way. So I've never fit in, never belonged, never wanted to actually. Even in the spiritual paradigm, you'll never meet another person like me, and I'm so happy about that because the more I think that we go on this journey of trying to fit in and trying to belong, the more we're gaslighting ourselves out of what we already are. Right. So for me, it's like all of a sudden, when nobody knew who I was, and I was just traveling around doing, the church basement circuit or the hotel ballroom circuit or the keynote circuit, whatever, nobody really had an opinion. But all of a sudden now, when you start to gain prominence, everybody wants you to be somebody other than you, and everyone starts to have an opinion. And so you've got to know who you are and recognize who you are. And so for me, this feeling of enough just comes from recognizing that having all the money in the world doesn't make a difference, that who you know doesn't make a difference, how you live your life, where you live your life, who your neighbor is doesn't change anything, that you still have to go through everything you have to go through. And I think that in a very real way, this came into full fruition for me when my daughter Celeste was born with a congenital heart defect. And she spent 18 months in hospital, had 5 open heart surgeries, flatlined for 9 minutes during one of them. And then after 18 months, had a heart transplant. And now she's 11 years old and she's a cheerleader. And so in that moment, when all of a sudden being Panache Desai doesn't matter, being on Oprah doesn't matter, writing books doesn't matter, having all these peers and colleagues who are in the self-help spiritual industry doesn't matter, uh, having fame and fortune and success doesn't matter because you'd happily trade it in for her and for her to be healthy. And, it just shows you everything. It shows you who your friends are. It shows you who's really there for you. It shows you who you can rely on. And I think that it was the best thing that ever happened to me because I could have very easily have just kept writing books and touring and traveling and, doing one keynote after another, um, because that's just what you're supposed to do. And like this kid just saved my life. Like like her willingness to go through all of that just woke me up. It's totally sobering. And then also in and amongst all of that, because there's such an enormity to that level of crisis, you have no choice but to let go and to surrender and to access something greater than ourselves. And really, that's what the essence of spirituality is to recognize that there's something greater than us, call it whatever you want, that's at work in our lives, right? And so for me, in a very tangible way, stepping away from everything, stepping away from all of it was the best thing that ever happened. And today, we've got 2,000 people who show up every morning for morning meditation from all over the world. You Are Enough went on to become a national bestseller. Discovering Your Soul Signature, still traveling all over the world, exchanging. So it just goes to show you that you can be yourself and have everything that everyone's telling you that you're supposed to have, but you don't have to compromise who you are in order to have it.
Wouldn't that be a thing? Wouldn't that be a thing? We could have everything we wanted, but we wouldn't have to compromise who we were. Like, so let's step back a little bit because the who we are is a question in all of itself. You talk a lot in your book about the created self versus the authentic self. And I want to give our listeners a little insight into what you mean by that and what version of ourself has been shaped by conditioning versus who we were really meant to be.
I think that all of us has been shaped by conditioning, actually, and that very few people are connected to who we really are. So we have to examine what that means. on a basic fundamental level, you know yourself as repeated emotions, repeated feelings, repeated thoughts, repeated beliefs, repeated habits, patterns, and behaviors. That repetition becomes your biology. Your repeated survival adaptations becomes your ego, your identity. And then the repetition of your story, which is all the past events that for the most part you weren't able to accept or reconcile. So when we talk about the created self, it's multifaceted and multi-layered, see, because when you say, who are you? Well, you only know yourself as your experience of yourself, right? But there's a deeper experience of who we are. And that deeper experience of who we are is that actually beyond all of those things, there's this infinite part of us, this hidden dimension of us, that's this light, that's this love, that any person who's had any direct experience of the truth has all shared the same truth. They encounter this light and this love that's overwhelming. And they come back to tell us that that's who we are beyond all of these things, beyond the thoughts, beyond the feelings, beyond the story, beyond the repetition, beyond the mind, beyond all of these things that we've been trying to fix, heal, change, and improve to constitute the illusion. That's who we are. Now, there's actually a layer beyond that, which is that beyond that, there's an infinite formless potential. There's a nothingness, right? There's this emptiness, this equanimity. And so who we really are is this place of infinite potential and possibility that shows up as this light, this love, and this presence. And it just so happens that this light and this love and this presence is the foundation of all of this. So the illusion is that you and I are two different people. The truth is we're the same light, love, and presence in two different bodies. That's the truth of it, right? And that's the truth of all of us, is that we're all the same light, love, and presence, just in different bodies, right? And we're unique expressions of that. And so the created self is actually an entry point into the truth of who we are. And when you do have any kind of an awakening or crisis in your life, the thing that's challenged is the created self, because you realize that you can't solve what's going on. You can't fix it. You can't do anything about it. You're confronted with an overwhelming sense of powerlessness.
Yep.
And what you have to do is welcome that powerlessness, because underneath that powerlessness, as uncomfortable as it is the true source of power. It's an infinite power, and it doesn't belong to you. It's beyond you.
So you already know we make the best workout gear, but one of our best products, our highest rated product on our website is actually our collagen. If you have not heard about Glow Up by CVG, you are missing out. There is almost 700 five-star reviews on this product because it is such an amazing supplement. Actually, looking at it today, there are only 2 1-stars that were meant to be 5 stars. They love the product, they hit the wrong amount of stars. This is one of our most popular products for a reason. It dissolves like no other collagen. It's type 1 and 3. You're gonna have healthier skin, better joint mobility. Everything about this collagen makes it easy to put into your daily routine. So if you haven't tried Glow Up, get on cvg.com and make sure to add it to cart today. It's our best product. Getting to the place of the feeling of letting go, that we maybe don't have the power that we thought we did. Got any tips and tricks on that?
Well, I mean, ultimately, you can try and control everything, as much as you want, but at some point,
I do. Yes, I
at
do.
some point, you just have to recognize that you're afraid of what's inside of you. You're not afraid of what's outside of you. So why does somebody need to exert control over everything? Because they haven't made peace with the rage inside of them, the anger inside of them, the sadness inside of them. And if they don't micromanage or control everything outside of them, then the people outside of them or world events are going to trigger the remembrance of what's uncomfortable within, and they don't want that. So anytime anyone's controlling, it's typically because there's just so much rage in them and anger in them that they've made it wrong. Typically because there was a parent who was a rager, or somebody or a sibling or somebody modeled that rage in a way that was explosive or violent. And so they made it wrong. They basically took this position saying, well, I'll never be that way, right? And this is all the created self. And then you spend all your life trying to prove that you're the opposite of who you really are. When the truth is, you're just as much of a rager as the people who raised you. It's just inconvenient when it comes out and you're shocked that it comes out, but the truth is it's there, right? So how we make peace with it is by being honest and vulnerable and transparent with ourselves. our role in all of this is to cultivate an intimacy with who we are, and to accept these parts of ourselves and to recognize that this part of ourself that we're controlling is actually worthy of our love, that it deserves our love, that we deserve our love, that when we're having these moments of humanity, we are lovable. And so for me, instead of focusing on spirituality, Lord only knows what that means anymore, I realized that we just had to focus on being human. Because where everyone was struggling was with their humanity. Nobody was struggling at the level of spirituality. Like at that level, we're already everything. There's nothing missing there, right? But it's just that people kept disqualifying themselves because they're a human being. But you can't help being a human being. You're going to be one until the day that you die, and then it won't matter anymore, right? So while we're here, let's make peace with it. And so the entry point is to first of all recognize that you're controlling, and then to secondly recognize why you're controlling. And why you're controlling is because you're afraid of what's inside of you. And you don't want the world to remind you of what's uncomfortable within you.
I I'm so blown away by the idea of recognizing our own humanity and just like sitting with that, because I think that so many people have a significantly easier time recognizing other people's humanity, the people
Hmm.
they love, well, they just he rages because he has this trauma, and and we are able to see it outside of ourselves. And then when it comes time to make space for ourselves, it's just like there isn't any room for that.
Hmm.
And I really love that you brought that up. I want to also ask you, besides the example we gave of being a micromanager and a control freak, what are some other examples that you might see in someone's daily habits that might be a sign that they are not they're working under their created self?
Well, I think addiction is a big sign, because it's very stressful to be the created self. You're constantly pretending, you're constantly expelling a lot of energy. So where there's any kind of addiction, that's an indicator because somewhere you're lying to yourself about who you are, right? And so then you have to maintain the facade and the illusion that you're not that, and then you have to numb yourself and punish yourself in whatever way you see fit, for not living up to your own standard. So that's one way. Overwhelm is another way. Stress is another way. There are so many ways that we've adapted as a species to living this lie, right? To living in this facade, this self-image that isn't really who we are. And what's happening is that in the world, it's somehow been made okay to be totally inauthentic. Because if you look at the people who have actually made it in the world, the inauthenticity is what generates all the money. Why? Because everyone who isn't legitimately in the industry for the right reason ends up signing all the big deals, right? And how come? Because nobody wants to be honest. Nobody wants to be real. Everybody wants to be distracted. So then we live in a system where everything's incentivized to keep us distracted and to perpetuate the numbing and the loneliness and the emptiness. So we just keep producing, we keep consuming, we keep living our lives, no ounce of fulfillment at all, no ounce of connection to the truth of who we are. And we spend the rest of our lives that way. And then, one day, someone tunes into a podcast like this and encounters a conversation between the two of us, and they think we've either lost our minds or all of a sudden they're like, my God, that's me. Like, I'm totally that person, right? And if you're that person who's listening to this and thinking, as uncomfortable as this conversation is right now, he's speaking to me, then now it's time to start paying attention because you're being invited into a deeper experience of who you are. And anytime life captures your attention in any way, it's always that. It's an opportunity to come into a deeper experience of knowing ourselves from our hearts.
Can't miss those opportunities. They don't come along every day, and I love the idea that this can be your moment to just really start on this path. I want to talk to you for a second about, some of these societal goals that you spoke about in the beginning that maybe we're chasing without it being a part of our true, authentic self and what we want out of this life. And I want to talk about women in particular because a lot of social conditioning goes into making sure that women are self sacrificing and ironically also the strong one at the same time. We give it all the things. We have to be high achieving, but also maternal. So I just want to know, to anybody who feels like these might be identities that they took on at some point that really were never theirs. How do we know if an identity has become a cage instead of a strength?
It's absolutely become a cage when you know that there's no peace in any of it, right? So if you honestly can't have a moment of peace in the midst of it, then you know that you're living in a prison of your own making. And coincidentally, most of the people that come to see me are women, and and it's in some ways it's really sad because the degree to which all of the societal conditioning has taken hold is the degree to which really strong, powerful individuals are disempowering themselves. And I think that's why so many women are drawn to this because it's a reclamation of their sovereignty. And it's actually an invitation to really love themselves and to know who they are beyond all of those things and to live their lives from a place of something real within their hearts, right? Some connection to something authentic. And so the symptoms are right now you're lost in some addiction. Going to the gym can be a part of that addiction. It's a healthy one, but nonetheless, you're just incessantly in there. You just can't get off the bloody treadmill or the stairmaster, whatever it is that your weapon of choice. The the stationary bike, whatever it is that you're doing on a daily basis, that can be an addiction too, right? But again, it's like we have to get clear about what's fueling it. And I can tell you that there's such a simplicity when we start to be honest with ourselves about our experience. It all of a sudden it promotes this kind of tenderness toward ourselves. And then I think it's important for the individual, particularly women, to figure out what being a woman means to them. I don't think it's okay that everyone's constantly defining it for them because I think that everyone's here to be an individual. I think we have to figure out what that means for ourselves and we have to uncover that within ourselves. And that's where the freedom comes from.
Freedom is, I think, one of those goals that sometimes feels elusive, but also is, I think, a universal end goal for everyone. And I would be remiss if I also did not speak to the crisis that is the male population at this point in time, with somewhat of a shift in values in the female population. A lot of men are left wondering where they belong, and what is supposed to be driving them if they are not to fulfill those more typical gender roles. Um, do you have any advice for, women who are interacting with these males, raising these males? What can we say to help both genders truly define themselves without the social constructs that are constantly pressing down?
I think it's a bit of an impossible task because they're going to be influenced no matter what you do, right? Because they've got this lens into the world, and they're gathering all this information at breakneck speed from everywhere, all over the world. So there's very little you can do about that. I think as it relates to being a parent, you can just preserve their innocence and childlike simplicity for as long as you can, you know, and then and do that. Then as long as you can do that and be available for that and let them know that they're okay being different in who they are, you're going to be okay. I think that the reason why there isn't a hard and fast rule for that is because you have to treat everybody as an individual. I think the reason why we're all suffering is because people didn't treat us as individuals, right? In school, they wanted conformity. When you get to work, they want conformity. A group of girlfriends all kind of dress the same, have the same problems, same issues, go to the same places. It's conformity, right? But there's no space for individuality there. And I think what we can do is, regardless of the gender, what we have to do is celebrate someone's individuality and their uniqueness and love them in it. And to the best of our ability, embrace it. And if we can do that, then we have a well-rounded, confident individual at the end of it who doesn't second-guess themselves or question their self-worth or value because they've been loved for being themselves the way that they are.
I have a lot of hope for our generation. And you have an 11-year-old daughter. I have a lot of hope that we are making great strides in the parenting field of treating kids on a more individual basis, because you're right, because we got a lot of rewards from conformity, didn't we?
Hmm. Yeah.
I I think that it was highly rewarded to conform, and, anything else was, as you mentioned, you were considered so out of the norm that it was just like, "You're weirdo."
Right. Yeah. I think we're doing the best that we can as parents, although when we first start parenting, we parent exactly the way that we did when we were parented. And then we're kind of shocked. It's like we end up saying and doing the things that were said and done to us. And we're like, oops, I can't believe I'm doing that. But then thankfully, we become aware of it and we have compassion for ourselves. And then gradually we began to dismantle it. Right. But I think, you're right. I think that we've got to get beyond the incentive structures around conformity because who are you? What's your voice? Like, why are you here? Why are you doing what you're doing? Like, what makes you unique about you? And that's what I'm interested in because for me, it's like human beings are like art installations. Like every human being is so different than the next, and I want to get to know the art installation that I'm standing in front of instead of predetermining or predefining what art is or what it's supposed to be like or how it translates to me.
What an amazing analogy. I've never heard humans described in that way, and I'm sorry, I'm going to from now on, everyone is a beautiful piece of art that I have no preset notions about and have not defined what art even is or means. I am here. Um, so in the book, you talk a lot about not letting our emotions define us. And I think when people first start into this, it's a very emotional journey to start uncovering all of these uncomfortable things that you said, like, we'll keep this down and I'll just pretend that I'm this person instead. How do we unleash the emotions, but not live in them?
So I think that first of all, we have to have a certain level of accountability and responsibility and recognize that we're the source of the emotions. Now, the second part of it is then, well, what do those emotions have to do with anyone around us? Well, it's very convenient to make it about the kids or the current partner or the parents or whoever's around you. But does it really have anything to do with anyone around you or are you just pissed off? Like, I mean, after all, sometimes you just have to get that you're upset, right? And that it doesn't have anything to do with anyone else. So there's a certain accountability and responsibility that we can deploy as it relates to ourselves that sets us free of the reactivity. And again, it's not a perfect science. Sometimes you will be very convinced that it's someone else and you will project it all over them. And then you'll feel bad about doing it afterwards, right? So again, this is where you have to have so much compassion and so much grace for yourself. The reason why it's so intense when we begin is because we've so denied these things. So all of a sudden, it's like when we open up these boxes, it's like these explosions are going off and it's like so unwieldy and so violent. But gradually over time, it becomes a nothing burger. You still have an experience of being human. You're still the same person, yet everything's different because your relationship with yourself has completely shifted. Instead of judging yourself and condemning yourself and building a case of your self-worth based on how you handle human experiences, now you can just kind of witness yourself and observe yourself and have some empathy and compassion for yourself in the midst of your life. And that's a grace that we can all grant ourselves.
If you were to is this work that we're doing alone? Is this work we're doing with a professional? Is this work we're doing alongside the people who love us? Like, when people are kind of first thinking like, "Okay, I wanna do this, but, like, the explosions sound a little intense. I don't
Mhm.
know if my people are down for that." Like, what is your suggestion?
I feel like everyone's doing it all the time. They just don't realize that they're doing it.
Mm.
It's like life in and of itself is a point of initiation. And everything that you're going through is waking you up to who you really are. So it doesn't matter how you go about doing it. The most beautiful thing is that you go about doing it at all, but you do it with a sense of grace and you do it with a sense of compassion and empathy toward yourself, you know. And also, if you really get this, then you really don't need anyone else. Like you can get to a point where you can start to just recognize, my God, like I just really haven't loved myself. I really haven't accepted myself. I really haven't embraced who I am. And at first, that's going to be sad. But then after a while, you realize, whoa, okay, well, this is my opportunity. So how am I going to meet myself now? Am I just going to continue to dismiss who I am and reject who I am and push these things away and numb myself? Or am I going to welcome them and embrace them? Because the more I do, the more I feel like I'm enough, the more I feel lovable because I'm the only one that can love me. So it's very much an individual and solo journey because you're in your body and I'm in mine, right? Like as much as I can love you, there's nobody that can love you better than you, right? So as it relates to relationships, we've got to get to a space of truth that in relationships, the reason why we're in relationship is for companionship and intimacy, right? We don't need people to love us. We need to love ourselves. We also don't need others for security. We have to become our own place of certainty and security within ourselves, right? And that changes the whole relationship dynamic, the whole marital dynamic, everything, because now it's coming from being an empowered individual instead of living from this place of needing the other to complete you.
I'm going to be honest. I think that's a little scary for some people.
It can be. Yeah, it can be. That's why typically it takes a medical diagnosis or a crisis or a divorce or the wheels falling off your
Yeah.
bus in order for people to even begin, you know?
Yeah.
But you'll be surprised to know how many people are now just doing it of their own volition all over the world because they're just waking up. You know, when we went through the pandemic, we basically went through a death and dying workshop. And in that moment, everybody was forced to wake up to who they really are, what they're living for, what the whole point of all of this is. And everyone was forced to live with each other. All of a sudden now you're in your relationship. So bloody hell, is this really what a relationship means? You're parenting, you're at home with your kids are home with you. Oh my God, whose children are these? I don't know how I feel about this, right? And so it was the beginning of the unraveling of the inauthenticity because the pandemic forced us into accountability and responsibility. And also, the clock ticking on our own mortality helped us realize that we didn't have the time to waste in situations that were inauthentic. And so I would hazard a guess that everyone who's with you in your life who's watching this has already considered all of these things. And as much as they may be scary, well, that's why I wake up every morning and do call to calm meditations because, for me, it's just about being there. People can come. It's totally free. They click on a link. They'll show up. We'll do a 20, 30-minute talk every day in a meditation. And hopefully that supports someone in knowing they're not alone, and cultivates the courage to help them do what they have to do for themselves, right? But the good news is that now we live in a world where people are willing to do that. And people are willing to live for something more than all of the external metrics that are just unobtainable and unsustainable.
I love the idea of alone together. The work is yours, but there is this shared existence of other people who are doing the same work. And I think that that's so much of what, we need collectively.
Hey, you.
Thanks for getting in touch with the Thick Thighs Save Lives podcast.
We love your questions and adore hearing from you.
Leave us a hello,
A burning question,
feedback,
or anything else you want to share with us on the podcast.
We will play your message live on air if we can.
Thanks for being an amazing friend. Stay safe and moving.
You mentioned modern life being so comparison driven. And obviously we have, as you mentioned, a breakneck speed of the amount of all of the goals that we should have and all of the ways we should be waking up in the morning and all of the ways we should be parenting and how our house should look. How do we stop outsourcing our worth to these external markers? Do we have to get off social media altogether?
So
I'll do it.
I'm going to give you a bit of a spiritual answer to this question. So bear with me while I get a bit woo-woo with it. So I feel like in the moment we externalize God, we externalized our power. In the moment we externalized our power, we externalized our light, love, abundance, wisdom, health, everything. And so when you amplify that to the nth degree, you have the externalization of everything.
Yeah.
Now everyone's looking outside of themselves for everything. Now, the funny thing is that every mystic, every person who had a direct experience of the truth knew that this our hierarching power, this overarching kind of intelligence was within them and within everybody. So it's really not outside of us. And so the first thing we have to do is recognize that there's love in us, there's divinity in us, there's God in us, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter according to your faith, your tradition. It's in all of us. And that when we start to reclaim that part of ourselves, which is the truth of ourselves, well, then we can reclaim everything else, the wisdom, the love, the light, the abundance, everything else, you see. But until we do that, we're just going to keep putting it outside of ourselves, and we're going to keep reaching outside of ourselves to other people who we think know better than we do. When all the while, the only expert on your life is you, because you're the one living it.
What if we had the power all along?
Exactly.
Oh, it's a feeling of, all right, hell yeah, and oh shit.
Yeah, because now...
Me?
Yeah, exactly.
This guy?
Yeah, because now you can't be a victim, right? So now you have to be accountable and responsible for your experience. You can't blame anybody
Oh,
else.
that's gonna be tough. Also, who put me in charge? Because I want to speak to.
You put you in charge. Just like you've put yourself in charge of everything, why wouldn't you put yourself in charge of that too? Hello?
I mean, who would you want to be in charge more than, you know what I
Exactly.
mean? Like, I mean, at the one hand, it's like, hey, I'm the boss of me, okay? And then it's like, oh, but wait, I'm not qualified.
I'm the boss of myself selectively when it suits me, but in other moments, no way.
I know that your suggestion that a lot of the suffering that we feel in our daily lives comes from like this resistance of like, this is not happening. Um, I want to get some tips from you on how someone can practice acceptance without feeling like they're settling, because a lot of these type A type of personalities feel so driven towards their goals that if they give up, they are no longer who they said they were.
Well, I think we have to understand the difference between accepting something and surrendering to it as opposed to giving up, right? So let's say you get a cancer diagnosis. Okay, you can feel every which way about that imaginable, or you can just accept the fact that this is the journey that you're on. As long as you continue to feel every which way you can about that, you're suffering. But in the moment when you finally get to a place where you're like, okay, this is the journey that I'm on, all of a sudden you start to feel peaceful in the midst of it. And it makes no sense to anyone else. Like all of a sudden, everyone else in your life is freaking out more than you are about this diagnosis. And I feel like everything is that. Like everything is an entry point into the same realization or the same revelation. Like life is literally bringing us up to the edge of something or the brink of something so that we can finally let go. Now, what I can tell you is that it's not apathy. It's not just sitting there and doing nothing. Like I'm still very dynamically engaged in life. I just realize that it's all happening through me. You know, I'm not doing it. I'm basically having it all happen through me. Like it's all unfolding all by itself. That there's an amazing synchronicity at work in every moment of our lives, right? Like how you and I bumped into each other, right? So there's some amazing thing happening here, right? Now, for me, my role in all of this is to be in awe of that and just to observe that and witness that and be grateful for that. So the reason why people are confused is because we live in this illusion of ownership. We live in this illusion of ownership, and ownership means that we're doing something. It's our fault that we made it happen. When really what's happening is the ego is taking credit for what the soul is already unfolding or naturally unfolding. And when you realize that there's a greater journey here or a greater life path unfolding here, well, then you can kind of relax into it, right? Then all of you type A driven people can stop blowing out your adrenals and having sleepless nights and just finally get to a place where you can finally just have a moment of chilling out for the love of everything sacred, just taking a breath, and just being okay, Why? Because you'll begin to see, hang on a minute, there's something more than me at work here. There's something more than me at play here. Like there's no way that all of this is happening because I'm doing something. Maybe all of this is happening because it was always supposed to. Like there was some greater plan at work here. And so the entry point is to realize that surrender and letting go is wisdom and intelligence. It's not apathy. It's actually the height of intelligence to surrender and let go. And then you're just responding to what's happening. Then you just respond to what life is bringing you, what life is calling out of you. You're just responding to it, and you're watching yourself respond as it's happening. And it's magical.
Magical because your truest self is responding,
Yeah.
and it's in a way that it is genuine to you?
Totally. And you still got the label, you still got the diagnosis, you're still going through everything you're going through, but you're going through it with so much grace and so much peace and a smile on your face because you know who you are beyond it.
I'm going to ask you a personal question, and I'm sure other people struggle with this, but what about the feeling of that's not fair?
Well, I think that we all get into that place of fair, not fair, but that's because we're looking at life from a very limited perspective, trying to determine what everyone needs to go through in order to realize who they are. You know, we're living in this kind of hierarchical system and structure where some experiences are better than others. But I can tell you that we're here today because of the best day of our lives and the worst day of our lives.
Mm.
And none of us would be here without them. So regardless of how we experience it or perceive it, whether we feel it's fair or not, it's what we're going through. The question is, while we're going through it, how do we want to go through it? Right? Because by virtue of the fact that we're human, we're going to go through everything. There's no avoiding any of that, right?
Ooh,
The good, there's
ooh.
no avoiding any of it, none. And you can try and bulletproof your life all you want, but guess what? Stuff is still going to happen. You're still going to go through things. You'll just feel so alone in it because you won't feel vulnerable enough to talk about it or to express it out loud because you'll still keep living in the illusion of perfection, like you've got it all together and there's nothing going on. But now we're realizing, well, wait a minute. No, we don't have to do that. No, everyone's struggling. Everyone's going through something. And it's okay that we articulate these things out loud. It's okay that we express them. In fact, like the whole time I was going through everything with my daughter, I was still traveling and speaking and doing everything. And I would just show up and, just be honest about how I'm feeling and what's happening. And it was the best thing ever because I didn't have to be anything other than myself.
Did you have to scale the it's not fair wall?
I've never scaled the it's not fair wall because I would rather die than be a victim. That's just how I grew
Just
up.
rewind that. We'll just play
Yeah.
that back on repeat,
Yeah.
like,
That's
just
that's
it's a
how I
couple
grew up.
times a day.
Yeah, that's how I grew up. I grew up in an environment where it's like, I would rather die than be a victim. The one thing I would not be is be a victim.
It's a commonality in so many people that I talk to that are not only just successful, because as you mentioned, success often does not come with the awakening that we think it does. Um, but not only just successful in, what we consider our accolades that we've decided, but also truly know who they are. They absolutely refuse to be victimized, and they are hard on accountability for themselves. And I think that that's both a really hard thing and a really essential thing.
Yeah. Well, especially if you want to make the most of your life, right? And make the most of what you have every day. Because listen, there's any reason why you can turn on the news every day and feel sorry for yourself and feel bad about the state of the world. But we also have to realize that human beings, as much as we're animalistic and barbaric and cruel at times, we're also beautiful. And we're also genius, and we're also creative, and we're also loving. So actually, it's the withholding of the more animalistic, barbaric nature of ourselves that then keeps us distant from the creativity and the beauty too.
Mhm.
So if we're going to be human, we have to accept all of it, be at peace with all of
All of
it.
it.
And then we get to determine as individuals which part of it we express. For me, every day, there's no greater joy for me than letting everyone know that they're adorable and there's infinite light shining out of them in every direction. And whether they get it or not, or believe it or not, it doesn't matter. I've been there every day for 1,664 days. Most of that was 7 days a week, and now we're at it 5 days a week, and I'll still be there, because for me, there's nothing left for me. What am I going to do? Play golf? Like, there's nothing left for me. All I can do is share this with the world, and then what people do with that is just what they're going to do with it. But I'm not even sharing it for them to do something with it. I'm just sharing it because it's the truth.
It's your truth, and I love, love, love that. Um, Lastly, and I absolutely we're going to 100% share the link because I know that there are so many listeners who want to join you each morning, 5 mornings a week, and get some of this. But I want to ask you one more question before we go, and it's if someone hears themselves in the self-doubt, the not enoughness, the stuckness, what is the first internal shift that you'd encourage them to just small step, we can do this today, one step at a time, but here's where I would say the work begins.
Immediately become aware of your breathing. Immediately.
I did it.
Immediately become aware of the fact that you're breathing. That's the most important thing. I share this every morning. It's the only thing I share every day. Resting in the awareness of your breath transforms your life into a living meditation. As soon as you become aware of your breath, all of a sudden you begin to discover, well, wait a minute, there's some space between myself and this experience, some space between myself and this emotion. Oh, and then I can come back to my breath and then I can accept what's going on. And really, then your life really does become like a living meditation, because really the essence of meditation is to observe yourself without judgment. So if you can become aware of your breath, then no matter what you're going through, you're observing yourself without judgment, and that's meditation.
Are you are you tricking yourself into mindfulness? Are you tricking yourself into being exactly where you are at this second without all the future telling, past telling, what did I have to do in 20 minutes from now? Like, is
I
that
don't,
what we're doing when
I
we're
don't know.
focusing on our breath?
I don't know that you're tricking yourself into it. I think that you're just finally allowing yourself to be where you've always been.
We were always here.
Yeah, because you can't fake it till you make it. Like
Right.
you have to just settle into what was always available to you.
The power of these and and I think that the thing that I really am leaving this podcast with is that, like, it was never in someone else's hands, and it's also not this, like, 25-step program
No,
that, it's so within ourselves, and it's so available, and it doesn't cost $29.99 even.
no, I'm leaving this podcast with the fact that my thick thighs have saved my life.
Let's go. Let's go. And you thank them for that today. You slap them and you thank them for that. Thank you for saving my
I'm
life.
so grateful.
This has been so amazing. I want you to give our listeners a place that they can connect with you. We will put
Sure.
definitely your meditation link in the show notes. But where can they get a hold of you?
Just head on over to panachedesai.com. It's PNACHEDESAI.com. Everything's there. There's a Zoom link. Come hang out. It's free every day. You're welcome to come. And I just want you to know that while the whole world is hyper-fixated on fixing you, healing you, changing you, and improving you and understanding you, maybe there's somewhere in the world that you can come to where people are just ready to support you in accepting yourself the way that you are.
True. I'm waiting at the door. I think everybody else is too, because that sounds like what we have been needing. Thank you so much for taking out the time today. You have been amazing. And I can't wait to see you at meditation. I'll tell you that.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. I love my time with you.